So today in lesson 4.3, we are discussing how to post column totals from a journal to a general ledger. And we left off when we were discussing the two rules of posting in the last unit. So here's a quick refresher.
When we talk about posting, there are two main rules. The first rule of posting is that separate amounts in a journal's general amount column are posted individually to the account title. And the second rule is that separate amounts in a journal's special amount columns are not posted individually. Instead, the special amount column totals are posted.
Say what?
Okay, if you're confused about that, we're going to take those two rules and we're going to break them down.
So in lesson 4.1, we went over the first rule. Again, let's do a super fast recap of what that was.
So the first rule, again, reads that separate amounts in a journal's general amount column are posted individually to the account title. Basically, what we're saying is that when we look at this journal, we're only going to be focused on the general amount column. So any number that's in the general amount column will go into the individual account ledger. Any number that's in a special amount column, and remember our special amount columns are our columns that have account titles as their name. So we have sales as a special amount column and cash as a special amount column. Those individual amounts are not posted. Instead, we're going to use rule 2 when we talk about our special amount columns, and we'll go over that in the next lesson.
So now that we're at the next lesson, we're ready to go over that rule number 2, which again states that separate amounts in a journal's special amount columns, again, special amount columns are titled with the account title. So in this journal, our special amount columns are sales and cash debit and cash credit. So these separate amounts in the special amount columns are not posted individually. So we will not do every single line. Instead, the special amount column totals are posted. And the reason we do the column totals rather than the single individual lines is that these are special accounts, which means they're used a lot. And if we had to post every single line, that would be a lot. So instead of doing a lot, we're just going to do one in posting the totals. So this rule is actually demonstrated with check marks in the journal. So when you see a check mark in the post reference column, this is something I was having you do before, and I was like, we'll understand why later. This is why. So check marks in the post reference column of the journal means that that individual transaction is not posted. And we used those check marks when we used two special amount columns like cash and sales. So we don't have to post it. We're already done. Check it off. The check marks that you will see underneath the general debit and the general credit column are there because we don't post those column totals at all. We've posted all of the general debit and credit amounts individually. So check marks just means that we're not posting that transaction in the case of the special amount or the column total. So let's talk about how we post the total of our special amount columns. You're going to be very happy. It's super, super similar as posting our individual amounts.
Same, but different, but still same.
So we're still going to start with the date. So we'll take the date down. And again, when it's the first line, make sure that you write the month. But every line after that, you do not need the month, just the date. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to take the journal page number and we're going to bring that down and know that this time we're on page 2 instead of page 1. Because we're posting totals, this will always be a big number because it's going to be the last page of the journal. The third thing is to still copy down our debit or credit. So in this case, we're doing the sales credit column. So we're going to take the credit and we're going to drop that same exact number in the credit. And then the fourth thing is to figure out our balance. And so right now, remember, I have a previous balance assumed of 0 when I start the month. So I can just copy that same credit over to the credit column, 3,565. The last thing was to finish out our X by taking the account number. And in this case, this is slightly different. So instead of putting it in the post reference column of the journal, we are going to put it in parentheses underneath the column total because it's the column total that we're posting. So I'm going to take 410 and in parentheses, and we do parentheses to differentiate the totals versus the individual amounts. So 410 in parentheses underneath the column total because that is what we've posted. So let's take a look on how to do this with our cash, debit, and credit columns because this time we'll actually have a balance we need to figure out. So the first thing I'll do again is the date, so May 31st. Then I'll bring down my post reference column, which is the page number of number 2. And now I'm going to start with the cash debit column. So the debit goes into the debit, 8,315. Again, I assume I start with 0, so debit can go all the way over to debit, 8,315. And then I need to finish off by taking my account number and placing it in parentheses underneath that column total I just posted. So 110 underneath the column total. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to post that credit column total. So I'll have the date again, but I don't need the month, so just the 31st. This is still coming from page 2 of the journal. And now I'm in the credit column, so I can transfer my credit to the credit. And now I'm at the point where I need to figure out the balance. This works the same way it did when we posted our individual amounts. So let's review super fast on what that rule was.
So when you have a balance, if your past balance or your previous balance was in the debit column and your new number that you posted is in the debit column, the final balance will go in the debit column. So a debit and a debit equals a debit. And you will add the two numbers together. If your previous balance was in the credit column and you're posting a credit number, this works the same way as debit and debit. So credit and credit equals a credit, and you would also add the numbers. If your previous balance was in the debit column and the new number you're posting is in the credit column, or vice versa, let's say your previous balance was in the credit column and the new number you're posting is in the debit column, the balance gets posted to the column that actually has the bigger number, and you would subtract. So when both columns are the same, you'll add and drop it in that same column. When both columns are different, pick the column that has the bigger number and subtract the numbers.
So in this case, our previous balance is a debit of 8,315, and the new number that we're posting is a credit. So when they're different, I choose the bigger column. In this case, 8,315 is larger than 3,351, so I'm going to post in the debit column. When they are different columns, I'm going to subtract. So 8,315 minus 3,351 is going to be 4,964. And then I'll finish off with my posting by taking that account number and again in parentheses, putting that underneath the column total that I just posted. And that takes care of posting column totals to the general ledger.
And that is how it's done.